We let folks, as we let folks join, we just want to welcome everyone. Thank you for joining today's session. In their own words, supporting academic success through COVID-19. We belatedly realized we scheduled this on Veterans Day and during a particularly busy midpoint in the semester. So we so appreciate you joining us today. As you may know, my name is Hayne. I'm here with my colleagues, Ideri, Melanie, Sadana. Our President Candy's on the line here as well, and you'll be hearing directly from them and or interacting with them throughout the session. And as usual, as people filter in, please share in the chat box who you are, which partner college you're representing today, your role with TheDream.Us, and if there's anything in particular you're hoping to get out of today's session. We also encourage you to drop your LinkedIn profile URLs or emails. We really love for these to be opportunities for you to network with our growing TheDream.Us partner college community, now in 21 states, Washington, D.C., and online. We also have a Facebook community just for our partner colleges, if you didn't already know, where you can meet others doing this amazing work as well. So as folks get to know each other in the chat, here's a quick overview of what's in store for you this hour. My colleague Ideri and I will spend the first 20 minutes sharing what our scholars had to say about their academic experiences in the past 2020-21 academic year, which continued to be a challenging one with an ongoing pandemic, a key presidential election, and continued uncertainty around immigration policy reform. We'll also share what resources TheDream.Us provides in supporting scholar success. And then here in part two, we really want to spend a good amount of time learning from you all. You're the ones with the expertise, with that deep-seated knowledge on serving undocumented students, and really how the challenges of the past year and a half can really inform our work for the current and coming academic years as it pertains to supporting college completion for our scholars and our partners who are there every step of the way with our scholars. So we have a lot in here. My colleague Ideri is keeping me accountable for my time, so we're going to get right into it. So today we'll focus on data from our third annual TheDream.Us Scholar Survey. First off, we want to thank you all for encouraging our scholars to use their voice every year. Without your support, we would just not have this privilege of learning from the experiences of thousands of our scholars and improving the supports we provide this very, very special community. This year's survey, which asked scholars about their college, professional, and personal experiences during the past academic year, was administered online between May and June. 2 out of 3 scholars who were enrolled in this past academic year participated in the survey, which yielded over 2,500 responses. Again, we want to celebrate that and thank you all for driving that participation. We had scholars from over 70 current partner colleges and colleges that no longer receive new scholars in 16 states, Washington, D.C., as well as our online partner, Purdue Global. One key shift that we want to note here is the growing percentage of scholars without DACA or TPS. This year, 69% of our survey respondents had DACA or TPS, compared to 90% in last year's survey. And so one of the things we're very eager to learn from you all today is how you're serving this changing group of undocumented students and how your expertise can inform some of the data we're about to share here today. An additional footnote here for our scholars enrolled this current academic year, 45% do not have DACA or TPS overall. And if we look at just those starting as freshmen or as community college graduates with us this fall, the majority, 76%, do not have DACA or TPS. So this really marks a big shift for us in terms of the population we're serving and the particular challenges our scholars will now face in college completion and career readiness. You'll see here on the right that the majority of our scholars do also identify as Latinx. Okay, so here are the key narratives from what our scholars told us about their academic experiences during the 2020-21 academic year. Overall, the pandemic continued to amplify barriers to college completion and success. First, our scholars found the remote hybrid learning environment tough and more stressful than in-person learning. Second, our survey and academic records data from our enrollment verification reports and renewal forms suggest lower rates of course completion than in the previous academic year. which means scholars withdrew or failed from more courses than in the previous academic year. We'll dive into the details on this in just a bit, and again, would welcome your insights here. Third, on-campus engagement continued to decline. We did share in last year's survey workshop session that spring 2020 was particularly difficult for both scholars and campus staff to connect one-on-one as everything shifted to a virtual environment. We see that that trend continued this past academic year as well. And as such, we see scholars continuing to voice both their appreciation and need for one-on-one touch points with their scholar advisors, academic advisors, and faculty. And they continue to share, especially in the open-ended responses, just how much that one-on-one touch point means to their college success and having an agent on campus really care about them as a person. And finally, as always, we want to emphasize just how resilient our scholars are. At the end of the day, they are persisting in school in such a difficult climate. But the data does suggest that we do need to keep a close eye on the long-term impact of this past year and a half on college completion. All right, so here we see on the left that 65%, so 2 in 3 scholars found online and or hybrid learning to be more or a lot more stressful. Those are the red and orange bars, sections on the pie chart, than in-person learning, which may have contributed to what you see on the right, which is 1 in 4 scholars reporting that they failed 1 or more courses during the entire academic year. So when we saw this, our president, with her ever astute observations, said we really need to understand more. We need to look at this academic performance data. And so we dug deep into the data that we collect from you all, from our partner colleges and our scholars in that annual renewal form, especially given that survey respondents, as we all know, tend to be positively self-selected. And it's oftentimes those we do not hear from that may need supports the most. So here, we're going to dig into what our academic records data and our scholarship renewal form data is telling us. National Student Clearinghouse indicated that last fall they saw enrollment decline by about 3.4%, with greater losses for community colleges. We, interestingly enough, did not see similar drops in our enrollment, but our data suggests that course completion is where our scholars may need additional support. So this table here examines historical cumulative credit data for about 800 national scholars in blue here and 140 opportunity scholars in orange. These are scholars who are enrolling this current academic year and were enrolled in the past 2 academic years. And we were looking at their credit accumulation history over the past 2 academic years to see if we can glean the potential impact of COVID-19 and ongoing uncertainty around immigration status on their academic performance. So what you see here is a comparison of the number of credits that were attempted as reported on the enrollment verification reports that we received from you all, with the number of cumulative credits on their unofficial transcripts at the end of each academic year. And so this reflects performance data for students who are now juniors and seniors and completed their freshman and sophomore year. So you're looking at academic performance data for our scholars who completed their freshman and sophomore years. And I would like to also add that these are mostly those enrolled at 4-year institutions. We know that this data is imperfect. It may not accurately identify credits earned specifically towards their degree, but it does serve as an indicator that for both national and opportunity scholars, the percentage of scholars who did not earn all of their attempted credits increased between the 2019-2020 academic year and the 2020-21 academic year. So you'll see for national, it increased from 37% to 43% of scholars, where the data suggests that they may not have earned all of their attempted credits. You see a similar increase from 25% to 39% for opportunity scholars. And the other thing we want to note here is in the second column, the median credits lost. So if we look over here, you'll see that given the average, let's see, If we look at the national scholars, you see the average credits lost over the course of the entire academic year increased from 7, which is about 2 classes, so 1 class per semester, to about 3 over the course of the academic year. And this trend was similar for our opportunity scholars. And if you look at this final column on the right, given the average median credits attempted, about 13 credits per semester for national and 16 for opportunity, losing a class or more each semester could really have that long-term impact on scholars' time to graduation. So we'd love to start getting you thinking about, again, if how losing courses now during this past academic year may impact their long-term academic journey. I'll also add that we saw similar trends in scholars who are approved for renewals with an academic warning. So those with a GPA below a 2.0. This year, about 5% of national scholars who are approved for renewals had a GPA of 2.0 or below, or under a 2.0 GPA, I'll say this year, compared to 2% last year. And it was 3% of opportunity scholars this year who were approved for renewals who had a GPA below a 2.0, which was up from 1% the year prior. So even though this is a small percentage and number of scholars, the emphasis is really in the doubling and the tripling of scholars with a GPA below a 2.0 in the last 2 academic years. So does this resonate with what you're seeing on campus? This is one of the key questions we had for you all, and we'll be engaging with you in the breakout sessions. Are you seeing similar trends on campus, maybe for our scholars or other scholars at large? We'd love to see if this is resonating with you. So please drop your thoughts in the chat. Okay, so if we move on to scholar engagement on campus, for those interacting with other TheDream.Us scholars, advisors, and faculty, they continue to rate their quality of interactions highly on a scale of 1 to 7, where 1 is very poor and 7 is excellent. The orange bars all the way on the left reflect this year's survey results, and the blue and yellow bars go back 2 years. So you will see a very, very slight decrease over the years, but the emphasis here is that overall scholars really appreciate the connections they have with campus staff. But what we want to emphasize here and focus on is that similar to last year, we continue to see an increase in the percentage of scholars who had no interactions with these agents on campus. Again, the orange bars on top reflect results from this year's survey, and the blue and yellow bars go back 2 years. So you'll see here 26% of scholars said they had no interactions with other TheDream.Us scholars, which is one resource that our scholars consistently request of us, opportunities to meet other TheDream.Us scholars, and 17% said they had no interactions with their scholar advisors, which was also an increase from the previous 2 years. This maps onto the greatest needs that our scholars said that they need for academic resources, being virtual check-ins with their scholar and academic advisors. And this, of course, we know has been just so difficult since COVID-19, and we are aware that scholar advisors have expressed their own challenges in having students show up to check-ins. So again, would love to get your feedback on thoughts on how you've been managing your virtual check-ins with your scholars, or now that we're back in person for many of our campuses, have you seen an uptick, increased engagement as scholars fill back onto campus? So if we shift gears to thinking around how we can actually better support scholars in their academic journey, one thing we've encouraged over the years, but certainly have not mandated, is to create an educational plan with their scholar advisor for college completion. But you'll see here on the left in the red bars that the majority of our scholars in the last 2 years have not created an educational plan on how to complete college with their scholar advisors. And one question that has been consistently raised by some of you all is whether or not we should reinforce the need to honor check-ins with scholar advisors, and whether or not there are more concrete strategies or steps that we can take to make sure students stay on track and graduate on time. Again, these are questions that we'll be addressing in our breakout sessions, but this is certainly a key question that my colleague Ireri will also be addressing in this session. Finally, in this last minute, I am sticking to time. Before I hand this off to Ireri, we really just on behalf of the TheDream.Us team want to emphasize how much your work matters. And so sharing here some of the many, many quotes we got from scholars voicing their supports voicing what supports were critical to their academic success this past year. And it really speaks to and honors the work that you all do. I'll just read some of them here. The guidance from advisors and faculty and staff were very important this year. Due to the pandemic, everything felt odd, and it was nice to have the support for a sense of direction. Counseling really helped me to be redirected towards my graduation goals. Talking to my scholar advisor really helped in making a plan for the future of my career. And so these quotes really just speak to how the work that you all do touch our students in many different ways, not just about their academic success, their career readiness, their mental health. And so just a lot of appreciation for all the work that our partner college staff do. And with that, I will hand it off to you, Ideri.
Thank you, Hein. Thanks again, everyone, for joining us today. My name is Ideri Rivas Militaran. I am Senior Program Manager with TheDream.Us. I hope most of you have either gotten a communication from me or joined one of our sessions in the past. I joined TheDream.Us this January and just really excited by the work that you all are doing and just hearing more about how we can better support your efforts or think about additional ways to do so. I wanted to take just a really quick few minutes to highlight some of the resources we're currently offering to scholars. So this is really scholar facing. Most of you would have probably received our PC resource guide that Melanie Witron, one of our colleagues here, sent earlier in the semester. If you didn't, please let us know in the chat or later on, and we'll make sure that you get these moving forward. But we really wanted to just share some of these resources so that you know what we're offering to our students, and if you're so inclined to also share it with them if it makes sense as you're having conversations with them. So the first resources we wanted to highlight are around finances. As we all know, that's one of the biggest areas of need, especially now during the pandemic, and how much it has impacted our students and their families as well. So we have partnered with Mission Asset Fund to streamline the way that we process DACA renewal grants and emergency funds for some of our students whose DACA was negatively impacted. So we did send out an email directly to scholars with steps on how to do so. But if you want more information or if your students are asking about it, please be in touch with me and I can share more of those steps. The other thing I really wanted to highlight was the program guide. Melanie and I are really trying to emphasize that students be empowered to answer their own questions by looking at the program guide. There's one for the National Scholarship and one for Opportunity, so that they can answer their questions before they come to you or us. Not that we don't want them to, but we just really want to empower them to start taking that on. And similarly, their ISTS portal is essential. Not only is it essential for them to find a lot of information about their award, but coming up for renewals, which happen every summer for returning students, they need to make sure to have updated emails and phone numbers in order for them to get the notifications about renewals and to be able to renew their scholarship on time and get their money for the subsequent year. So this is definitely one of those areas where we'll ask you a lot to help us spread that message. And even in your meetings with students now, simply ask them, have you logged in? Is your information up to date? And then we can take it from there. Next slide, please. Awesome. We also know there's a lot more going on than financial issues for our students. As you probably know, we offer scholar hours. So the one for November is happening later this afternoon, and students can join with any questions for us at any point in their college time. We offer Q&A sessions monthly with an immigration attorney. Ellie Hernandez is our wellness advocate who can provide additional immediate resources for students and then link them to those on your campus. And then, as you probably know, for the national scholars, there's a new exceptions request form in their ISTS portal, which is, again, another reason why it's really important for our students to go in there in case they need an exception. Next slide, please. Another big one is academic supports. So U-Science is an aptitude sort of game that students take, and it helps them choose their major, and it ties potential careers that they could take on. And that's really important because, as we probably all know, changing of their major is one of the main reasons why scholars don't complete their degree on time. And Modern States is a resource where they will actually get money and get paid if they take, I believe it's CLEP exams for credit. So it's mainly for first years, some second years, but those are really great resources that we have available sort of year round. And newish, but not completely new for this year, is a lot more supports for our scholars thinking about grad school. I listed some of them here. We can go into a lot more detail next, but I definitely want to keep us on track. Next slide, please. And then career readiness is one of our main areas of focus as well. As some of you already probably heard, we did a couple of pilots this summer, one with Career Launch, one that's finishing up with FOSTA at the moment. We're going to do another one with MLT coming up in just a few weeks. And once we finish all of those pilots, we will let you know what our recommendations in moving forward with these entities are. I know some of you are engaging with these already. So if you could share with us your thoughts as well, what worked, what didn't, that would be really great. And then more toward internships and summer opportunities, Teach for America, Breakthrough Collaborative, and Dream Summer. Okay, I know that was super quick, but again, just trying to keep us on track so that you have as much time to share. We'll pause here to see if you have any questions on either the data that Haynes shared or the resources that I just plowed through. So definitely feel free to ask for more clarification or details. And you can feel free to put it in the chat or just come off mute and ask. Jeff, I see you have a raised hand. Go ahead.
Yes, in Haynes' presentation, there was a question that's asked like whether academic difficulties stemmed from COVID-19. And unless I was misreading it, like a majority of the respondents said no. So I'm not sure like the scope of that question, like meaning did contracting the disease like negatively impact your ability to complete your degree, or just like the general disruption caused by the pandemic, like they were answering no to that, or like actually getting sick or another complication?
That's a great question. So we don't want to know the private medical history of our scholars. So we do keep the question at large. And what we've certainly heard anecdotally is, while we do know some of our scholars who have shared with us have contracted COVID-19, it really is, thank you for that question, is more about the disruption that has occurred. So, last year we saw a decline. We had, over 70% of our scholars working prior to the pandemic, and that dropped to 43% post-pandemic. So we saw a lot of scholars lose their income, which has a lot of deep ramifications for not just their own livelihood, but their family. We know anxiety and mental health has been a key concern as students move to hybrid learning and a remote environment. So yes, we're talking more about the environmental disruptions that COVID-19 has had on their personal lives, as well as their college experience. Thank you for that question. Oh,
we have one more question maybe in the chat, and then we can move on. Do we have any data on how the stipends had a positive impact for scholars?
This is a great question. And we actually have never asked specifically on any of our surveys or have asked feedback from our scholars specific to the stipends. And I think that's a great question, Catalina. I'm putting it in my notes for this year's survey. And we'll hope to have some more data for you in a future session. Is there a particular reason that you ask?
So in particular, it's just because when I've been meeting with students, I've gotten a lot of really great positive feedback on how the stipends have been really helpful to them, whether it be to relieve some of the issues that they have financially at home for some bills that they had, maybe essentially like lowering some of their work hours that they had to focus more on school since they're able to pay for whatever out-of-pocket costs they've had. For example, I even had a couple of students say that they used their stipends to buy like scooters or stuff like that to get to campus or get around campus, especially for those commuters that, they come to campus at 7, they don't leave until 6 p.m. And so they're kind of just going around campus. So all of the feedback that I've been hearing about how the stipend has affected the students all kind of leads to even more just positive results in other areas of their academic, life, whether it be like improvements in grades, improvements in their own mental health, improvements in their own ability and capacity to get to campus or get around campus. And so I was just wondering if there was any additional deeper data regarding, some of those impacts and how, the potential for continuing the stipends, increasing it, or anything like that could positively affect retention in some ways.
That is such a great question. And I will add just a couple quick observations. So we do ask on this survey, has the TheDream.Us scholarship allowed you to work fewer hours? Not specific to the stipend, but that was one of the key sort of areas of impact that we really wanted to understand is, does the scholarship relieve and to what extent the financial burden that the cost of tuition and fees has on you and your family? So the majority of our scholars do say that it has provided them economic relief as a scholarship as a whole. But I think your question is very specific and a good thing to understand. And I think we got a lot of qualitative feedback. Sadhana here in the chat has mentioned our emergency grants. So we did a couple rounds last year providing $500 emergency grants to any of our scholars who were eligible for the scholarship for that particular semester. And we did get a lot of feedback in the survey that year and the open-ended responses about what was most critical to your academic success this year. And many of our students did say that $500 emergency grant was very helpful to their livelihood. But this, raises the question of the stipend is something we offer every semester for most of our colleges and our national students. So it's something that it's duly noted and we'll do a deeper dive on. So thank you so much for that feedback.
Thank you.
I might also just quickly add on this one that we have just opened another emergency grant, and it is for a limited number of scholars. Those who had filed to renew their DACA, it did not get renewed in time, and they have lost their positions. And it just opened a couple days ago, and already we have 60 students who have applied. So just seeing how much need there is there in itself will be very informative, but we'll keep you all posted on what we learn in this particular emergency grant, which is very targeted on those students who've lost their jobs.
All right, thank you all. So now we're going to move on to what I've been looking forward to the most is our breakout sessions. So in just a second, you're going to be invited to join a breakout room. We will be asking two main questions. So the first one is all about how do we get our scholars to engage more fully and meaningfully on campus, whether that be having one-on-one meetings with their scholar advisors, academic advisors, their peers, some of the opportunities offered on your campus, clubs, activities, internships. What else are you seeing that's working to increase their engagement? And what could you use in order to do that work more? And then the other main question is around college completion. As we saw, a lot of students are not completing enough courses, and what does that mean for their overall completion on time? So again, we'll be asking you, what are you doing on your campus? What are you seeing? What are maybe some of the best practices you're already implementing or thinking about implementing? And what additional resources might you need from us, TheDream.Us, in order to do that work? So we'll put you in those breakout rooms. We'll keep track of time, but please try to go through both of these sort of set of questions. One of our team members will be your facilitators, and then we're definitely going to ask one person in the group to sort of get ready to share out some of the highlights from your discussion with the bigger group. So we'll go into our breakout rooms for about 10 to 15 minutes, and then we'll come back for a large group share out. So please think about what are some of the things you want to share, and then we'll close it out and allow more time for questions. Okay, I think that's it on this. Donna, let us know when we're ready to go.
All right, opening up all the rooms, and just so everyone knows, it's completely random. So here you go.
All right, see you in a bit, everyone.
Hi, hello. So this is our group, right?
You should see a notification come up that shows you the room that you're going to, and you just accept it.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Charlie, I see that you are supposed to go to room 3. Do you see that notification? There you go.